Hello, and welcome back to the Graveyard of Broken Dreams. I am once again reviving this second channel, this time to do a book review of Starlight by Hannah Lee Kidder. If you don't know her, she is an author foremost, and this book is kind of supernatural, a little bit horror, all very quite grounded still, but she is also a YouTuber like me, and I've linked her main channel down below. She gives some really great writing advice. She's also really funny, which is how I first came across her. We connected a while back, and she sent me a review copy of her book that is out now, I believe. Again, linked down below if you want to check it out. It's her short story collection, and I want to talk about my feelings on it, about what I liked and all that sort of stuff. I've never done this before. I am not a book reviewer, but I kind of want to do a little bit more of it, and I thought this was a really cool place to start. So, I want to say first and foremost that I am not a short story writer. That is not where my skills lie, and I have been really trying to read a lot more of it. I've been reading Ted Chiang's Exhalation and Jeff Vandermeer's Dead Astronauts, as well as some more magical realism stuff, more grounded stuff, because these are sci-fi, Amy Bender's The Girl with the Flammable Skirt, and I actually also read Hannah Lee Kidder's Little Birds, which is her first set of short stories recently. So I have been trying to get a lot more into short stories, and boy, I am really glad that I did. So with that caveat that I'm not, a short story writer, I really want to say that it's great. It's a really beautiful collection of short stories, and they are written really well. I particularly enjoyed one story called Contained, which was only like a page and a half, but it's clearly someone looking into a vent and thinking that something's in the vent, and that if they stop looking at the vent, that the thing's going to come out. And it's written in a way that you're not quite sure if it's actually there or if it isn't there. But the short stories range from like 20 pages to just 1 page, and for me, I really enjoyed the shorter ones the most, like the ones which are just kind of a snapshot. They were just a moment in what could be a broader story. Hannah Lee Kidder clearly has a really good grasp of just kind of prose and metaphors and just beautiful poetic language. I've actually got a couple of lines that I want to share with you. So these are just ones that may not be the best lines in the entire book, but they're ones that are kind of like, oh, I feel that. I get that. So the first one is, "The house is brittled, slouching with age and neglect and spite." And I was just like, oh, I can see that, I can see that house there with that. There's another one which is, "A child was raised on stories of crows, dark creatures with black intentions." That's from one called Mother, which was another kind of shorter one, where, you find out whether the crows are bad. She writes really beautifully, and I want to say that the strength of Starlight was definitely in the atmosphere, in the feeling, in the kind of somber, sorrowful, but sometimes hopeful, kind of grim, but still very grounded world that she built throughout all of these stories. They all had a very distinct feeling to them. There was a lot of atmosphere and mood. Those were really where the book shone. For me, as I said, I preferred some of the shorter ones. I think that the longer ones, if I were to offer, a critique here, is that coming from someone who mostly reads longer novels, the build-up of tension to kind of climaxes and whatever is very much a part of how I process fiction. And the stories that sort of did that a bit more, the ones that had that build-up, I felt, were not as good as the ones which were very much about that mood and feeling and atmosphere and poetic language. The short stories, I don't think, were necessarily about that kind of, building of tension so much, and that, beginning, middle, end, leading up to a climax. I don't think that that's necessarily what, Hannah was trying to capture here. And what she was trying to capture, that feeling was really well done. I will say that of the longer ones, there's actually one right at the very end called Passing Ghosts, and this was a longer one, not the longest, but it was definitely one of the longer stories, and I really loved it. It was probably one of my favorites in the book. It's basically you see the story of a girl who became a ghost and is watching this guy throughout his life. And again, this one in particular, like even though it's a longer story, there wasn't really like a build up to a climax, and I think that worked to her advantage in this story because it was very much still kind of just about that unfolding of that kind of moment, of that perspective, of that inside that person's head, and the feeling and tone and of the story that she's trying to tell. She really got into that quite deeply, and I really liked that. She really pulled it off. Throughout the entire book as well, I want to kind of talk about things that sort of bring all these stories together. There are really strong themes of kind of female empowerment, or at least female experience. I'm not sure, off the top of my head, if there was a single story that wasn't from a female perspective. At least there were male characters. And some sympathetic as well, but they were primarily written from female perspectives, and that was a really strong undercurrent of what these short stories were about, female experience. And in terms of getting into kind of a mindset that obviously I am not, a part of, I felt that was really informative. I felt that was really well done. It was really interesting for me to read it from that perspective. So, yeah, do I recommend you go and read these? Yeah, I absolutely do. I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope I can see more of this kind of writing. I'm trying to get more into short stories, and this was a great way for me to, part of my introduction into that. As I said, links are all down below to her YouTube channel, to her book, and she pulled me from one story to the next as I was doing it. And it only took me, maybe a couple of hours to get through the entire book. I don't know how long it took me. It's not super long, and it's got a really good variety of little stories that you can pull from. Thank you very much, for watching. I'm gonna try and do more book reviews. If there is a book you'd like me to review, then let me know down below. Also, if you're wondering where I am and why I'm not at my office, it's because I didn't want to clean my office, and my desk is a mess right now. So I decided to set up some of my art that I have. This one is by Xandrat. She's one of my favorite artists. This one is by, I can't remember, but it's a character from Life is Strange called Max. And this one, you might recognize, is Azula and Zuko's last Agni Kai. So, yeah. This is where I am. I just sit up in front of my couch and decided to talk about this. But this is a nice setup. I think this is a good setup. Anyways, stay nerdy, and I'll see you in the future.